Good. One moment. Very good. Thanks a lot, everybody. This is Günther Fellinger podcast. I'm very happy that we have this opportunity to interview this morning a very prominent Romanian politician and reformer who has a great record as a former minister and is also a personality. Now, I hope in the future will continue to fight for the Eurozone membership of Romania. This is part of my series of interviews where we invite leaders from Southeastern Europe for more unity to discuss here and also to explain to the German, Austrian, and European audience that Southeastern Europe is going good and we have great success here in the last 20 years. And it's time for more unity as part of the answer of Europe against the Russian aggression against Ukraine and all of us. So, Claudio, I want to welcome you very much and introduce yourself also with all your background. And then we go in the middle of the discussion about economics, about Romania, and what that great country is planning for 2026.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here, Gunther. It's wonderful being here. I know your fights, I know your policies, and I wholeheartedly agree with them. And we share this common passion to have a united, consolidated, and powerful Europe. And given what's happening in the world right now, I think the Russian aggression is just one part of it. It's one part of the puzzle, and a very important one because it's right next door. But I think we have to look even further beyond because if you look at what's happening in the U.S. or what's happening in China, I think Europe that's the big battlegrounds which Europe is going to have to fight on. And I do think we have all the pieces of the puzzle. So this is the good news. The good news we can solve our problems. We know how to solve our problems. It's just that sometimes we need a little bit more political will to do so. So this is a solvable problem. This is good. It's not an unsolvable one, but it does require a lot of strength and a lot of campaigning in order to do. So that's why I'm here. That's what I do in my life. I try to campaign for a stronger Europe, for a freer Europe, for a more integrated Europe, a more integrated economy, a less bureaucratic economy, and also a healthier Europe. That would be the goals.
But tell us a bit your secrets about yourself. You're a member of the parliament and you're a former minister, and we want to learn more about your vita.
So I have a financial background. So I'm a financier. Let's say I came into politics around 9 years ago, and I've been a member of parliament ever since. I've been in the Romanian government as Minister of the Economy for a brief period for 8 months. Problem is that in Romania, you have the lifespan of ministers is not very big, but it was enough for me to drive up a bit of change, drive up some change. And I'm also a big fan of transparency. I have this big budgetary transparency platform where every Romanian can see where money is coming from and where money is going, especially. And this is something that we use and that I use politically in order to show where spending can be more efficient or where draft can be curtailed or where there's corruption. So I think this is something where um, where where we can fight on a thing a policy that we can fight for is more transparency, and I think this is something that Europe has brought to Romania. It wasn't very transparent before. It is more transparent now, which is good, and I think this is a big part of my political fights. Yeah.
And tell me a bit about this open budget, because even in Austria we don't have that. And you know, Romania has always this kind of reputation of corruption. But in fact, you have all the spending online. How deep and how transparent are you in public finances?
Well, if you don't have that, then we can talk and maybe we can export it because it's not it's something which is readily available. It's just the numbers that have to be plugged in. So it's basically a platform in which everybody can see what taxes he's paying and what the state is doing with those taxes. And there's a lot of information there, like what ministry spends the most. Usually, people don't know what ministry spends the most in their country. Even people who are into politics don't really know all these intricacies because they're technical things. And yeah, maybe technical things are not as glamorous as the rest of politics. And this is something where you can go in each ministry, in each agency, to see how they spend the money, what they intend to spend the money on, and have a more informed opinion to make some data-driven policy decisions, let's say. And it serves also to combat fake news sometimes, because when they say, "Oh, we spend a lot of money on something," it's not actually a lot of money. Maybe it's very very little amount. So this is where you can actually see the priorities of politicians. So if a politician says my priority is education, but he always spends less on education, then maybe it's not education, you know. So yeah.
So tell me about your other big achievement as a minister. You were also doing simplification and deregulation, and you are famously fighting red tape very effectively. I saw on your Wikipedia page.
Yeah, so thank you very much for mentioning that. I'm a big fan of reducing bureaucracy and regulations. I think this is something that is holding not only Romania back, but Europe back. And this is why I said before that we hold all the pieces to the puzzle in Europe. So our problems are sometimes self inflicted. And the good part is it's also good that it's self-inflicted because it means that we can stop self-inflicting them. If it were inflicted by somebody else, then it would be more difficult to stop inflicting that damage. So that's why I'm a big fan of a lot of things which are happening in Europe right now, like the 28th regime that Ursula von der Leyen talked about a lot of things from the Draghi report. Not all of them, but 80% of them. I'm a big fan of them. I think that it's exactly what Europe needs, and I think there's a role to be played of constructive criticism within the EU. So if I usually, when I talk about deregulation or simplification or debureaucratization, sometimes people say, "Oh, but that's against Europe." No, that's not against Europe. That's for Europe. This is something which would help Europe. It would help Europe integrate. It would help Europe get giants, IT giants like we have in China, Alibaba and others, or like we have in the US, like Amazon and Google and others like that. This is some part of the reason why we're lagging behind is because we're too fragmented. We have 27 different regulations many times. So it's a huge regulatory burden to fulfill all of them if you want to have a European size. And also a lot of over-regulation from the European Union, and I think we can solve both of them. So we can solve both of these issues and actually finish the single market, because this is what the four pillars that Europe was built on: the free movement of goods, capital, services, and people. So let's finish this. Let's actually do that. You know, the IMF estimates that the non-tariff borders within Europe are 110% for services and 45% for goods. This is higher than what Trump does to Europe. So Trump doesn't do that amount of damage to Europe that Europe is doing to Europe. This is part of the criticism, but for the constructive criticism, I agree, and I want the EU-Mercosur agreement, the EU-India agreement, the EU-whatever agreement. Let's do agreements with everybody to have free trade with as many people as possible. But it's sad to see that it is easier to have common ground with Mercosur and with India than it is within Europe. I mean, let's get our things together, and I think the gains, the potential of Europe, if we do this, is humongous. 500 million people with a tremendous amount of wealth. It's going to be the best place in the world to do business in, the most innovative place in the world. We have tremendous potential to be the first place in the world in whatever ranking we look at. And I hope we're going to get there. I hope we're going to get there. I hope the Russian scare is going to unite us more and integrate us more militarily. And I hope the Trump scare is going to unite us more and integrate us more economically. And if we do that, then we can treat these threats as opportunities. Yeah.
Claudio, this week the European leaders, they meet in Brussels, I think somewhere in a castle, and they discuss with the former prime minister's letters and Draghi about all these things together. And I'm now since 25 years in this debate, since the Lisbon summit in 2000, and now it's 26 years actually when we discuss it. Do you think we will get into action and really build a more competitive Europe?
There's a saying in Romania. I'm going to translate it. Sometimes a kick in the butt is a step forward. So I think Trump has given us a kick in the butt. Putin has given us a kick in the butt. Let's move forward. Let's use that as an opportunity. And I think if European politicians needed to be jolted into action or to have a reason to say, look, we need to do this or we will fail. So the risk is not that we fail as a European dissolution. I don't think that's an option, but it will mean that we will lag behind. And it's sad because it means generations of people, of our children, of our children's children, who are not going to have the best opportunities in Europe. They're going to have to leave to other countries in order to get the best opportunities on earth. And there's no good reason for that to happen. The only reason why that would happen is because of political weakness. And this is why I try to strengthen up the arguments for European integration, and this is why I love what you're doing as well, Gunther, because we need this talk in order to move forward and to not have these talks for 26 years, like you've said, because yes, the talks have been going around a long time, and even the Draghi report is lagging behind. If you look at what he recommended when he recommended a few years ago, they've only done the easy parts, and the parts which don't really impact the economy that much. Yeah.
I was very active in the time I was working in the European Parliament for Dr. Paul Rübig in the early 2000s. I was very active to try to support Romania to join the European Union and NATO. And soon, I think it's 20 years in 2027 that you are a member of the European Union. Congratulations very much. And the hope
Thank you for
was,
your support.
yeah, we did really, it was very active times and we tried, and thanks a lot for appreciating. But then the hope was that Romania will be basically one of the driver of competitiveness of reforms, and that you will be very successful. Now, let's 20 years later, let's assess it. How successful is Romania in terms of developing of prosperity, infrastructure, and all these parameters like GDP per capita? Where do we stand here with Romania 20 years in the European Union?
So I think if Romania hadn't gotten into the European Union, I think we would have looked like Belarus. So if you ask me, we had all the ingredients to be Belarus without the European Union. So that's why when I hear people in Romania, not a lot of them, it's a small minority, but when I hear them, being against the EU and saying we need to exit the EU, I say you don't know what you're talking about. It's the life you have right now, the standard of living, and I think it's a big mistake of politicians that Romanian politicians make when they say it's good that we're in the EU because we received money. The EU is not about receiving money. If tomorrow we were to stop receiving any EU funds, it would still be a great idea to be within the EU. Why? Because of the four liberties and because of the political unity that Europe gains when we're united, of the political strength that Europe gains when Europe is united, and that Romania benefits from as well. So GDP-wise, it increased. I don't remember, but I think it's several times fold GDP per capita, and also infrastructure-wise. Of course, we can always say it could have been better, and it could have been better, but a lot of infrastructure has been made, a lot of connectivity has been made, and I think it's without doubt that Romanians have a much higher standard of living within the EU than without. And I think I've seen this Europol that has been made, where I think Romania was the country with the most pro-European percentage. So I was a bit happy to see that Romanians are staunchly pro-European. What's amazing, I would say, is that even though Romanians are massively pro-European, when you look at the political spectrum, some parties which are anti-European gain a lot of votes as well. So I think what they do is that they try not to talk about their anti-Europeanness. They try to mask it somehow, and I think they're doing a too good job of it. And I think it's our job to unmask them. But I do think that that Romanian public, if there were a referendum or if there were any questions asked, they would say yes, we need more European integration. And right now, what we
Claudia, let me ask you about that, because the last Europol was not so good. There was a little bit of only 40% of the said that in Romania that it's a good thing to be in the European Union, and I was very disappointed. Is it really such a what's the feeling of the Romanian population?
So good. I'm not sure. Then I'm not sure about the Europol, because I remember the Europol in which we were on the first. It made the headlines in Romania as well.
Yeah. Okay, maybe I mix it up. Tell me,
So
is
yeah,
it a pro-European country today, Romania?
I would say it's a staunchly pro-European country.
Okay, very
Yes,
good.
yes, and I would say the population is more pro-European than the politicians. So yeah, but I would say this: if you're pro-European, you have to fight for European integration. The next step for Europe, for Romania, is the Eurozone. Right now, unfortunately, because of a decade, almost a decade, let's say, of spendthrift governments, right now we're furthest away from the European eurozone as possible. You have to have five criteria that you have to fulfill in order to be eligible for the eurozone. In 2015, Romania fulfilled all of them except one, which was very easy to fulfill because it was just a political thing to get enrolled in what's called ERM2. And right now, we only fulfill one more criteria, which is sad. Which is sad. So I think that if politicians and governments really want to go towards the eurozone and towards more European integration, we have to get our finances in order. And I do think this is part of what has been happening in the last year. There can be criticism made. I agree, but I think that Romanian politicians have understood that we need to get finances into control, which is good, which is a good thing. I do see that there's this drive towards a multi-tier Europe, towards a multi-speed Europe, with some countries integrating faster than others. I'm sad that not enough countries are in the tier that wants to integrate faster. But if this drives European integration faster, then yeah, let's do it.
Claudia, let me
Unfortunately,
ask you, Bulgaria joined now the Eurozone.
yes,
And
yes,
beginning of 26, it was big success. How
big
do you
success.
feel in Romania that you're a little bit left behind and that you are losing out to Bulgaria, which is in many ways a competitor in historic terms, and they are now full member of the European zone with Schengen, Euro, everything, and you are not.
Well, this is. I think you're putting your finger on the wound right now. Exactly. We came into the European Union together. We thought we were linked, and all of a sudden, I think this is something that jolted a bit the Romanian people to realize that European integration is not happening if you don't do anything. You can't just sit in your house all day long and expect it to happen. Bulgarians did have very good public finances, and Romania had public finances 10 years ago as well. The difference is that Bulgarians kept them that way. Romania did not, and this is something which we have to change. And I think it's very sad for Romania. Croatia, who came into the European Union after Romania, is in the eurozone as well and in Schengen before us. So I do think this is something that Romanian politicians have to wake up a bit. And yeah, it is. It's sad as for a Romanian as a Romanian for Romanian pride. It's sad, but I'm happy for Bulgarians and I'm happy for Europe. And I think I'm using this as an opportunity to say, look, others are doing it. We can do it. It's just a question of political will. This time, not a European political will, a Romanian political will.
Let me ask you about the Romanian political will, because what I missed now, because I was also very active in your election campaign and
Hmm.
endorsing the pro-European candidate, and I
Hmm.
was very happy that he was elected. But I have not seen this clear statement of yes, we want to join the Eurozone as a kind of national strategic objective, which, for example, the General Pavel in Czech Republic. It's a country which is relatively Eurosceptic, and politics are also Eurosceptic, and the country is not
Hmm.
in the Eurozone still. But he is pushing the political class very hard to work to achieve Eurozone entry, which is,
Hmm.
of course, every new country in the Eurozone is a big win for Europe, and it's a loss for Putin. And so
Hmm.
that's a very much a strategic point of view. But Nick Sordan, the president of Romania, has he really made this as his one of his priorities? Or how is the political will in Romania now from the leading institutions to say yes to the euro and to lead the nation into the eurozone, first of all politically, and then fulfill all the criteria?
So, knowing Nico Jordan personally, I think he is in favor of joining the eurozone. The problem is that I don't think he made any political statements towards that. Our prime minister, Mr. Bolojan, did do a week ago or a few weeks ago. He made this political statement that has to be our national objective right now.
Oh, very good.
So that's good. The problem is that he's not a very strong prime minister, as in he doesn't have a lot of political support to do. He had some political power before. He lacks it now, if you ask me. Um, so some politicians, some high-ranking politicians, speak about it, which is good. The problem is when you look at the actions, because everybody is going to in a very pro-European country such as Romania, most of people will want to join the eurozone. The problem is that in order to join the eurozone, you have to fulfill some criteria, and it's normal. This is because the eurozone has to be healthy. You can't have sickness within the eurozone, otherwise the eurozone is going to suffer, and that's worse, the worst case scenario. So. I think we need to see our politicians getting their act together and stopping increasing spending like they've done in the past few years. Also, stop increasing taxes. We have had some huge increases in taxes in the last period, and all of these things get us further away from the eurozone. So I'll believe it when I see Romanian politicians actually going with actions towards a more healthier economy and more healthier public finances, which gets us into the eurozone. So that would be my take on it. But before the
Let me,
eurozone, I would say we
yes.
need. So I would say there are two things we really need: the eurozone and integrated defense. And I think this is a place where we both agree. I think we need that French strategic autonomy. So let's say for some areas like the military, like defense, we need to have autonomy. We need to not depend on the US. We need to not depend on China or whoever. We need to be able to make the entire production process within Europe. And this is something I'm a really big fan of integrating European defense and of having strategic autonomy in defense, in the defense industry. And this is something where I think uh, where I think that the war in Ukraine has jolted politicians into action a lot. And I hope that the war in Ukraine stops, but I hope that the efforts don't stop with the war in Ukraine, because I see them having, if the war in Ukraine stops, saying, okay, so now we don't have a threat anymore. No, we still have the threat. It's just the war that stopped. And this is something which I hope will not happen. Yeah.
Let's talk defense. Romania is, of course, a strong NATO ally, and you are a frontline state to the Black Sea. It's a very important country for European defense. And you have this famous military bases now at the Black Sea, which is, I think, the Rammstein of the East, or Aviano of the East, it's called in many ways, in order to explain the significance of this American NATO joint operation, which can reach potentially very far into Russia from its geographic reach. And there was recently talk that some Americans have left. What's the exact status of these bases now? And is there strong political support for these bases in Romania today?
So right now, the U.S. military has, I think, several bases in Romania, but the main one is the one you're talking about, Cogălnicianu, and it's also we were a bit shocked by the American. It's not a withdrawal of troops, because they said they're not going to withdraw troops. It's just the rotational troops that are not going to rotate anymore. So it is lessening the number of troops. I think again, it's something that should jolt us into action. It's something that should show us that we need to take defense a lot more seriously, not just Romania but Europe as a whole. We also have French troops on our territory right now. We have a French brigade, so I think the more we have of European integration of I think what we need more is to have these exercises. Like there was this exercise that stopped a few months ago, that ended a few months ago. It was called Dacian Spring, where they tried to move divisions through Europe from France to Romania to see how fast it would go. And they had a lot of problems. So of course we're going to say, oh my God, there are problems. Yeah, but this is peacetime. So we can have problems through peacetime because now we can solve these problems. So I think we need more exercises such as this to have to see how fast military logistics can come to Romania, because it's usually, I think logistics is what wins wars. It's not necessarily the tanks, the planes, the rifles. Is that, of course, but logistics is extremely important. There's this quote that it doesn't matter who has the biggest guns. It matters who can reload the fastest sometimes.
In these
So
terms, I have to ask you, wouldn't it have been better in the last 20 years if Romania built all the railways and highways to connect from basically Germany, Romania to the Black Sea, which we all were dreaming about 20 years ago, because it was clear that Romania needs highways and railways, and we could have built them the last 20 years. And now I think you are doing a lot, but still it's a little bit of time delays. When we need them, the military transport capacities are a little bit blocked.
I totally agree with what you've said. So this is when you asked me about infrastructure before. I was thinking, okay, we could have done a lot more. We're we've done a lot, but we could have done a lot more. And this is exactly the type of moment where I think this is going to we're going to see the cost of not doing that infrastructure at the right time. So I hope right now the things are getting together. So they're building it, and I think that the rate of modernization of railroads and of construction of highways has increased dramatically in the past few years. So I hope that before we actually need them for military purposes, they're going to be built, and I think they're going to be built. But this just serves to show that sometimes, you need an external threat to jolt you into action. If you don't have that external threat and you think, things are good, we can sleep longer today. We don't. It's not an emergency. You're gonna get into a false sense of security, which right now we're not in anymore. So I do think that when push is going to come to shove, we're going to have that infrastructure ready, even though things have not gone well in the past 20 years. And I agree with you. And this is something bad. Yeah.
Claudio, let me ask you about Moldova, because
Hmm.
recently, with the interview in Rest in Politics, President Maya Sandu, who I like very much and I support very much, and I always call for NATO membership of Moldova, but she made a statement about unification. And
Hmm.
that was, of course, maybe popular. I don't know. I will ask you now what's your opinion about it. But I was a little bit, when you talk about you want to support Moldova, I think building a highway to Chisinau from Bucharest would be a first very concrete step beyond all the nice talks about unification, but a nice four-lane highway. I'm not sure if it's ready because I was not traveling now for 4 years. But last time I was in Moldova, there was nothing like a highway from Chisinau to Bucharest.
So you know Romania very well, and I will tell you something. There's no highway connecting Bucharest to Moldova, the Romanian Moldova. So you know that there's the region Moldova, and then there's the Republic of Moldova. So unfortunately, we're very behind on infrastructure, and it's not because of a lack of funds. The EU gave us a lot of funds for infrastructure. It was a lack of capacity inside the Romanian government to use those funds to actually build infrastructure. It's not just corruption. It's not corruption. So it's also incompetence. Okay, so people underestimate it sometimes, but it is. It's there. We call it the Highway of Unity, the Unity Highway, and it's getting built. It's getting built. That's the good news. But yeah, if you were to come right now to Romania or to Romanian Moldova to Iași or to Chisinau, there would be no highway yet. Regarding unification, I think that's something that should be done, and I think that Romania should be talking the president, the prime minister, with the European powers, with NATO, and saying, look, we need to unify. Let's do two referendums, one in Romania, one in Moldova, and if the results are positive, and I think they're going to be positive, then let's do it. Because right now it would solve a lot of problems. But right now, unification is being done in small increments. Moldovans have a fast track to citizenship, to Romanian citizenship. Um, our electrical grids are interconnected, so they don't depend right now anymore on the Transnistrian supply of energy because it was really unreliable. Um, Also, Moldova needs an army. Moldova doesn't have an army right now. So Romania is not a great military, but it has some military power and also military alliances. So I think Moldova needs those as well, that kind of security. And if unification were to happen, I think the economic development of Moldova would explode. It would be absolutely amazing what would happen there. So I'm a big fan of it. The problem is that you would need to take some steps in order to get there, and I don't see those steps coming through. So if I when I'm when in politics, you have to pick and choose your battles. You can't fight all the battles all the time. You're not going to win them. You have to concentrate, focus on some of them. And I think the battles on which I am fighting right now is more European integration, Romanian European integration, going towards the eurozone, integrating the defense part and military, and also within the EU at a higher level, simplify, debureaucratize, deregulate, do the Draghi report. It's nothing extreme. It's nothing wow. It's just the Draghi report. If we were to do that, it would be amazing. It would be a huge step forward. So these
Let
are
me
a lot of
talk
strengths.
about this unification thing because it was a big
Mhm.
news item. And I'm a bit skeptical about that one because what I also told the Albanians always when it comes to Kosovo and Albania and Macedonia, I say we can all be united in the European Union, in NATO, in the Euro, in
Mhm.
OSCE, in OECD, in Schengen, and all these wonderful mechanisms which we have. And then the borders will not be so important anymore.
Mhm.
And knowing, to dissolve countries and to unify countries is a very difficult political process in the international arena, which will receive a lot of opposition. So I wonder if Mrs. Santa Maido, which I really like very much, but she is not even ready to say yes, she wants to join NATO as Moldova because she is neutral and she doesn't want to upset the Transnistrian consensus and Putin. And she has not a single time said something positive about NATO membership, yeah?
Mhm.
Which I was very, very much pushing. And then she is saying for unification, which is a much bigger concept. Why can we not step the real step-by-step approach towards Moldova in the EU, in NATO, in the Euro, and work like this?
So I used to criticize Maya Sandu a bit more, but when I see, but I criticize her in a constructive way. So I like her a lot. I'm a big supporter. But exactly what you said. Why doesn't she want to do more to come towards NATO, to come towards us? I think she picks her battles as well. So the political landscape in Moldova is very difficult. They have a huge Russian minority there, not just Transnistria, also in the rest of Moldova. So I think she's done a lot to de-Russify Romanian, Moldovan government, which is great, and Moldovan institutions. So maybe I think she's trying to tread carefully. But I do think that if unification would were to, maybe I think unification would be sometimes easier than NATO and EU membership, because it would be a fast track towards EU
Okay.
and NATO membership, and but it does require some coordination. It does require planning, and it does require even a military contingency in case that the Russian 14th Army, which is in Transnistria, decides to do something stupid, and we need to account for that. We need to control for that. We need to deter that. So I think there's a lot of political planning that can go into unification, but I think it could work. I think it could work if
You
both
could
Maya Sandu.
use you could use the German role model if you argue that this is the case, because it depends a little bit how you see the situation of Moldova.
Mhm.
If you see it as a country similar like Kosovo, which is basically newly broken out of the Soviet Union, or you see it as a part which the Soviet Union has broken out of Romania in 1940, and then you can easily go with the East German model, which in 1 year joined NATO and EU by joining Germany. But I have not really heard this argumentation so often from the Romanian and Moldovan politicians. So you
Well,
have to convince the world opinion a little bit better if you really want to have support from the European Union, which is a big step. Because basically we have then, as NATO and as EU, the defense obligation of the Transnistrian situation inside our union. And
mm,
if you want to do that, it's an option. I don't
mm,
exclude it. But you
mm.
have to convince the politicians of Western Europe to take that responsibility and risk.
So I think that this should happen if this fight should be fought from the top. So I think our president, has to set this direction, to set this political goal for Romania. This can't come from a member of parliament. Or it comes from a majority of members of parliament, let's say. But it has to have this institutional support of the president. And right now, I don't see this as being a top priority. So knowing the things that I know, what it's very short termism, I think is the term. So they always look at what comes next. They don't look 3 or 4 steps in front. And unfortunately, that's also the case for what I call the good guys in Romanian politics. So the pro-Europeans. Um, and that's actually why their main argument for why it's good that Romania is in the European Union is that we get funds. That shouldn't be the main argument. Also, funds are going to run out at one point because Romania is developing, and the reason why Romania is getting funds is because it's less developed than other countries. But the more it develops and the more convergence we have, the less it's going to get. So what happens then? It's not good to be in the European Union anymore? Of course not. So it's a stupid argument. So I would criticize the good guys, the pro-Europeans as well, my own guys, let's say. But yeah, I try to do so in a constructive way and choosing my fights. And right now, I think if we were to have the coherent talks for unification that you mentioned, so talking with European leaders, getting them on board with a potential tight situation in Transnistria, this has to come from the top. This can't be the fight of an MP, of a member of parliament. It has to be something more institutional. And unfortunately, I don't see that happening very in the short term. Yeah.
Claudio, what I saw in Moldova, and I was very happy with Mrs. Sandu because the taxes have been cut very low recently. In the last, I think it's already 4 years ago. I think they have a 12% flat tax, to my best knowledge. Yeah,
Mhm.
12%. Very good. And that's on corporate and on income. I have to check that I don't make any mistakes there. But in terms of Romania, you have a very good tax system. As far as I remember, it's 16% corporate and 10% income tax. Now you mentioned that it is tax increases, so I was a bit worried. Can you tell
Mm.
me what's the actual tax system? Because it's one of the reasons why in 2005, when you started with the flat tax, this big economic boom of Romania
Mhm.
started the last 20 years, which has put you from one of the poorest and absolute poor country, I know Romania very well, to an enormous and wealthy upper middle class, which has really transformed your whole nation into the tiger or boom economy of the last 20 years. Congratulations for that. But will you keep the flat tax? What's the news on that?
So thank you so much for this question. I'm a staunch supporter of the flat tax, and just so you know, when they introduced before they introduced the flat tax in Romania, the taxes were from 18 to 45%. It was a progressive, and one of the main arguments not to go to a flat tax of 16% at the time was that it would the revenue of government would crumble. Do you know what government revenue did? It actually increased. So we actually took more with a lesser tax and a flat tax than we did with a high and progressive tax. And this only goes to show you that higher taxes doesn't mean higher revenue. At one point, higher taxes means lower revenue. You're just stupid if you do that. I mean, it's not even good for government. It's not good for the economy. It's not good for anybody. And so right now we have a 16% corporate tax and also a 10% income tax, but also 25%, 35% actually, Social Security, which includes healthcare and retirements. So in total, I think I criticize a bit Romanian government for high taxes on low earning people, because what other countries, I'm not sure in Austria how they do it, but in France or in the UK or in Italy or even Germany, they have these amounts which are not taxed, which are tax free, deductibles, which help people who earn less, also make a living. And unfortunately in Romania we don't have these deductibles. So, or we do, but it's very very little, and it's insignificant. So this is one of my political fights: is to maintain the flat tax, but also add these deductibles, because right now the flat tax is under attack, and it's under attack.
Really?
Yes,
That's
it's
very
under.
bad because it's the one thing which made Romania rich.
Actually, there are three things. I would say there are three things which made Romania great, economically great in the past decades. So this flat tax is one of them, is the first one. Then we had this very good taxation of small enterprises, of micro enterprises. So basically, micro enterprises would pay 1% of their revenue, and that's it.
Oh,
No,
very
no,
good.
yeah. So
Explain
it's
that a little bit for the audience because I
well.
heard about it, but I never understood well.
Unfortunately, they took that away.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, they took it away. But the way in which it worked is that you would set up your shop, your enterprise, your business, and if you only had, I think, one employee. If you were a micro enterprise, so you would have under a certain amount of revenue, you would only pay 1% of your revenue. No income, no profits or corporate tax or whatever. Of course, if you had employees, you would pay taxes on the salaries, but that's something different. and it allowed a lot of people to do a lot of business in Romania. This very favorable regime, and it also allowed simplified accounting because you didn't have to keep the books with all the expenses and stuff, because you just have to record your revenue, and as long as you record your revenue, you know what the taxes are. There are no discussions with the tax authorities. It's all very clear. It's all very simple, and it was perfect for really small enterprises. Unfortunately, they took it away a few years ago, and but I was a staunch supporter of that as well. And the third thing was what we call second pillar pension funds. So basically, we have a system in which retirements go towards some private funds, which are managed by private entities and which have had some very good returns up until now. So I think these three things actually help Romania a lot. And right now, the Social Democrats, so in Romania, we have several big parties. The Social Democrats are one of the big parties. They are attacking the flat tax. They've been attacking it for ever since it was got implemented. They were against it. They didn't change it though when they were in power because they sensed it was really popular. So they didn't have the courage to change it. But they're still talking about changing it a lot, and I'm scared and I'm afraid that they're gonna try to take it away from us. But it's not gonna be without a fight. And I do think that if we go back to the progressive system that was before, revenue is gonna decrease. So it's not even going to be good for government. It's going to be bad for people, bad for the economy, bad for government. It's a lose 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 situation. What we can do and what I support doing is to have these deductions. So to have a certain amount which is not taxed for everybody, rich or poor, so small or big salary. This way, you help poorer people, manage to live by. It's something really sad. Romania has the highest taxes in Europe on small wages. It's sad because we're some of the poorest. We're not the poorest. Bulgaria is poorer, but we have some of the lowest wages and the highest taxed wages. It's not workable.
The father of the flat tax, Mr. Ivan Miklos in Slovakia, in 2004, he had some kind of minimum amount of income which was not taxed, a kind of a
Mhm.
threshold
Mhm.
included in the mechanism. And I think that's a good policy.
Yeah, I think that's you know who did that in the UK? Thatcher. When she came to the UK, she made this deduction. Right now, I think it's almost £13,000 per year because they have this year way of calculating taxes. It's not taxed in the UK, and it helps low earners. It helps people, and it helps them not by giving them social security, not by giving them welfare, but it helps them by keeping more of their own work. So you don't get that money if you don't work. You have to work to get it, and that's why I think it incentivizes work. It incentivizes people to activate, and I think it would be an all around good thing, such a deduction in Romania. Yeah.
But you say that actually, I want to make a statement that we should do the same in Austria, the flat tax, and we should do the same in Germany and in France, and that would solve our growth problems very much
Yes.
because the enormous economic growth of Romania in the last 20 years, where your GDP has basically, I think, 8 times bigger than 2000. This is really huge and unique in history and enormous success. It is because of the flat tax and low taxation, attracting investment, and of course because of NATO and EU membership.
And I would also say that the prime minister or the politicians who are going to do the flat tax in Austria or in Germany, I think they're gonna remain in history and they're gonna win the next elections if they have the courage and to do that. It's gonna be such a big boom of growth that it's gonna do a lot of good to your countries. And I also think it's gonna bring back more revenue to government because it allows the economy to grow more. So even if you take a smaller slice of the pie, you take a smaller slice of a bigger pie. So it's gonna be it will be a success if they have the courage and vision to do that. They should do that in Austria and Germany and everywhere. Yeah.
Everywhere in Western Europe to follow because we have a similar system like the flat tax now from Estonia to Bulgaria, and it
Hmm.
has proven enormous success for the European Union. All these countries have been really tremendously growing in the last 20 years, and that's one of the key reasons because of low taxation and
Hmm.
best, of course, the flat tax.
I totally agree, and this is what Europe should be doing if we want to fight in the big competition with the U.S. and China for economic growth, for innovation, for big corporations to be here in Europe, to be able to have genuine high end innovation. it pains me a lot to see that, data centers and chip factories are not being built in Europe. Why are they not being built in Europe? We have ASML in Holland, which builds these huge lithography machines on which all of these factories are built, but we can't build them in Europe. And it's only regulatory. It's only things which are linked to regulations and to the political environment. So this pains me a lot. But I hope we're gonna have some politicians with a more free market vision in the future, and this can really drive Europe forward. Yeah.
Romania is one of the boom countries in the energy sector, and you have huge projects of hundreds of megawatts of solar energy, wind energy, and all these amazing opportunities. How is that sector going? Is there a lot of inward investment into Romanian energy sector?
So I think that the main investments have been private driven. So you have this Austrian company OMV in Romania that bought Petrom and who made this huge investment in a power station, which right now has 10% of Romanian production of energy is made by this joint Romanian Austrian investment. Let's say it's more Austrian, I think. So also a lot of investment done by private individuals, by people who build solar panels on their houses, or who build solar panels or solar farms. Unfortunately, the state sector is still very big in the energy department. So 80% of Romania's energy comes from state-run enterprises, and there's not a lot of investment going on in them. We have this nuclear plant, which is a CANDU design, or a Canadian design, which is we only have two reactors out of five. There are talks of building the another two reactors, but those talks literally date since I was in high school. So from since I was in high school, they're talking about them. Construction has not yet started. So yeah, it's like the highways that you mentioned before. The difference is that the highways are starting to getting built. These ones are not. So I do think we have a lot of things to do in the energy department. The private sector did its job. It's being held back by state regulations, and the state sector is still huge, and it's not doing its part. And I think that we see that a lot. So if I were to recommend something, is that European energy industry Romanian energy industry look more like the European energy industry. So we should import a lot of better models from abroad, because the state-driven model that we have right now is really not working. Yeah.
Because you have the potential to produce gigawatts of
Yeah.
solar energy still, and you could really supply Ukraine and help us to
Hmm.
win this energy war with all
Hmm.
your enormous potential as well in the Black Sea with this Neptune gas field
Hmm.
and oil. And you are really an energy superpower for Europe in the making if the right decisions are taken.
So I'm glad you took up this point. Romania has helped Ukraine a lot, even with energy. And one of my issues with our current government is that, which is pro-European and pro-Ukraine, but one of my issues with it is that it's not being transparent about it. Austria, Germany, Poland, you name it, have all said, "Look, we are helping Ukraine with this," and they've given. We know how they're helping Ukraine. The only country in the EU which is helping Ukraine a lot, and trust me, it's a lot, but we're totally secretive about how and what exactly we're doing, is Romania. And this fuels a lot of propaganda, of disinformation, and you have these people who say, "Oh, we're poor because we're helping Ukraine," and stuff like that. That's actually not true. It's really false. But you can't really combat them without having transparency, without having access to official information. So this is one of my fights as well, to convince them to provide that information. And
I know from Bulgaria, for example, the defense industry, they have a lot and they are in red hot overdrive to supply Ukraine, and we are very grateful for their support. I don't know about the Romanian defense industry, but it's good. You know, every good European should support Ukraine with maximum defense industry, energy sector, financially. This is our patriotic duty as Europeans, and I
totally
thank you,
agree.
Romania, that you do that.
Yeah, totally agree. We are doing that, and I also was a supporter of, in the case of a ceasefire in Ukraine and of troops being sent there. I think Romania should send troops as well. I was a bit saddened by our government when they said that we won't send troops. We should send troops. Every Europe, all European countries should send troops there if there's a ceasefire and if there's an agreement and in order to uphold peace. Ukrainians had they took all the damage from the Russian aggression. And the reason why it's not at the Romanian border and it's not in Europe right now is thanks to Ukraine. If we didn't have Ukraine, we would be speaking right now in a very different geopolitical scenario and a very dire one for Romania. So I think Romania should be the first to help out Ukraine, and I do think we've done a lot. The problem is that we've done a lot in a secretive way. And I think we should have to do a lot in an open way, assumed way. We have to say, yes, we support Ukraine. This is a Russian aggression. This is a war where we will get involved to help Ukraine. It's a more assumed part. And unfortunately, Romanian politicians don't do that. I don't know why. Yeah.
Why is that? Because also in the election campaign last year, which was so dramatic, and we were so afraid that the Russian candidate, this Manchurian candidate, will win. And then it's a little bit, the Romanian political class, the pro European, is a little bit restrained, and it's a form of appeasement. They are not courageous enough to tell what needs to be done in order to also lead their nation towards supporting that. Is this the
I, I
appeasement or
I think
afraid?
this is a piece.
Fear?
It's a fear and an attempt to appease, but you can't appease this. And in politics, people who don't say anything versus people who say something really concrete lose. So if you're wishy washy, if people don't exactly know, if you're for Ukraine but not necessarily too much, and if you're not really precise and people don't think you're really mean what you're saying, you lose out. And this is, I think, what happened to Romania. That's why there was this door open for anti-Ukraine and anti-European politicians, because they came with a very clear and coherent message, and people, I think, on some level, respect more a politician that says something I don't agree with than a politician that doesn't say anything and tries to appease everybody and try to be everybody's friend. And if you're anti-Ukrainian, I'm your friend as well. If you're pro-Ukrainian, I'm your friend as well. It doesn't work that way. You have to give the direction. And I don't think appeasement works. And I'm one of the most outspoken politicians on this. I think we should help Ukraine openly, more than we did so up until now. It's good that we did so. I think we can do a lot more, and I think we should do so openly in order to combat the disinformation, because there is a lot of disinformation that comes. We're poor. Romania is poor because we're helping Ukraine. Romania was a poor country even before the war in Ukraine, before we were sending $1 to Ukraine. And also, if you look at the amount of money that we've sent, it dwarfs what other countries have sent, given the fact that we're on the border. So we're the most interested in helping out. So that's why I think we should be more transparent. This way, we could. I mean, I know some of the help we've given them, but if it's a non-public information, it's just a he said she said kind of thing. So let's be transparent and assumed in a pro-Ukrainian stance. And I think politicians, if they do that, they would stand more to gain, also politically, internally. Oh, but yes, they would have to do the debates. They would have to deal with hard questions. But the hard questions are easy to answer. I've been in these debates for the past 4 years since the war in Ukraine started. I don't think there's a problem in defending the pro-Ukrainian stance. There are hard
No, it's
questions, but there are
clear.
easy
It's our
answers.
patriotic duty, and it's
Exactly,
just our
exactly.
enemies who are against Ukraine.
And I've gone on their shows. I've gone on their podcasts, with anti-Ukrainians, and I've talked. I give them the arguments. We talk. And some of them then say, "Yo, okay, I respect you. I don't agree with you, but I respect you." So you gain their respect as well. Whereas if you go there and try to appease them, you don't gain their respect. You don't gain anything. So yeah, I think appeasement is a bad strategy at this point. I think we need to be assumed. Yeah.
During this election, there was also massive Russian intervention in the Romanian political space, which is proven now with a lot of money and a lot of intervention and whatever kind of bots from Russia. But
Mm.
still, the American MAGA right is somehow claiming that the EU has intervened in the Romanian elections. Yeah, what's going on wrong here with the interpretation of that elections? And why are some like JD Vance and others somehow so against Romanian democracy and trying to portray your country so negatively?
So if you look at the sequence, if you look at the sequence of events, It's not the EU that intervened in our elections; it's the Constitutional Court. So, um, but of course, Romania is being used as ammo in a war, in a cultural war between the U.S. and Europe right now. So, whatever small reason that the Trump administration is going to find to criticize the EU, they're going to use it, whether it's true or not, whether it doesn't even matter anymore. So, what I would say is that the big problem came when the Constitutional Court banned a far right, an anti-EU candidate from candidating, from being able to
Run.
register her candidacy. It's Joshwaka, if you've heard of her. She's an MEP. A very despicable person, I agree, but I don't think she should have been banned from running. I think she should have been allowed to run. And had she been allowed to run, the votes of the anti-Europeans would have been more split. When they banned one candidate, they allowed the electorate, the, let's say, anti-Ukraine, anti-EU electorate, to concentrate more on fewer candidates and to make one of them go into the second round. I think there was a political calculation of the Constitutional Court, which I'm not sure how it's like in Austria or in Germany, but in Romania the Constitutional Court is made up only of politicians. So basically, it's people, they're being named by political parties to be there. So they all have political allegiance. And this was the first mistake. This was the first mistake. Then came another sequence of events, which I think was absolutely anti-democratic. Let's say, yeah, it was anti-democratic. They tried to count the votes again. They saw that the result was the same. Then they annulled the elections. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. But yeah, if you ask me, there was definitely manipulation from social media platforms such as TikTok. There is this the pro-Russian candidate. So there are around, let's say, 25 million Romanians worldwide. Yeah, Romania plus the diaspora. This guy from Romania managed to be the ninth most looked at person in TikTok worldwide.
It's
So
impressive performance.
if that's not manipulation, I don't know what is. So
They
imagine that.
certainly helped him in Peking and in Moscow a
Yeah,
little bit.
exactly. So, but I think that if the Constitutional Court had not banned Mr. Shraka from running, then I don't think he would have made it to the second round because the votes would have been a lot more split. These idiots concentrated the votes. And I call them idiots because they tried to do a political game. They tried to make their candidate come into the second round with a far right candidate so that people would be forced to vote for him, and he didn't even make it to the second round. So, yeah.
What's the role of Mr. Orban in all of this? Because in Austria we see him very critical because he was manufacturing this so-called Schengen crisis and together with Vucic in order to build up this Aure candidate, in my view. And I called him out many times that this is unacceptable kind of intervention in Romanian politics. And he seems to be very, very negative factor in Romanian
He
politics,
is.
Mr. Viktor Orban. Now in April he faces elections. Hopefully he will lose.
I think he will
So
lose.
yeah,
Peter
that would be
Magyar
great.
will win at this point. From what I hear. The funny thing is that even though Viktor Orban supported our anti-European candidates, there's this political party of the Hungarian minority in Romania, which has around 5% of the vote, who supported the European candidates. So yeah, so Hungarians in Transylvania and in Romania, but mainly in Transylvania, it depends who they listen to, whether they listen to Viktor Orban or to their political party. But I would commend this political party and its president, Kelemen Hunor, who is this Romanian Hungarian guy, who actually went to Viktor Orban and told him, cut it off, cut it out. He's not going to be pro Hungarians in Transylvania. He's a nutcase. So stop it. And he did stop it afterwards. But he did give initially political messages towards the anti-Europeans. Yeah. Yeah. But
I
I
want
do think
also, as an Austrian, to apologize for our position. It was disgraceful. I was fighting against it, and I'm really very sorry that we blocked your Schengen membership for 2 years. And I want to ask you, how is now the feeling and the economic benefit to be in Schengen fully as Romania is now?
So I do think it helped a lot, and I thank you personally for fighting the good fight and for fighting towards Schengen integration of Romania. It helped a lot, and I think, but you know, the impact is long term. So the fact that we weren't in Schengen and we had all those queues at the borders and stuff was one of the things that helped anti-EU propaganda here, because they were portraying us as being second class citizens. They only want us here in order to get our resources, or they only want us to consume their products without, you know, and indebting us and flooding us in debt. And it you know, it served the wrong cause. It served the wrong side of the political spectrum, in my opinion. But right now, I think I think it's great. I think it's something that, again, you know, it happened after we have had this election interference, and I think is what jolted politicians, European politicians, into action, saying we might actually lose Romania. We might actually have a problem here if we don't get our act together. So what I know happened is that European politicians contacted Romanian politicians and said, "What can we do to help?" And Romanian politicians said two things: Schengen and visa waiver program for the United States. And they both got through immediately, if you remember. Problem is that ever since the Trump administration Trump won the presidency a few months after we got into the visa waiver program, and then they took us out again. So,
No,
yeah,
I'm sorry
but
to hear.
we're very happy with Schengen. So we're very happy with Schengen. But I
Welcome.
would say this. I would say this. If Europeans want European unity, I think we should ask for equal European treatment of European citizens by foreign governments as well. So I think this is something where the EU should have also a say in saying to the United States government, look, if you want for us to have this agreement, we have them for everybody in Europe, or we don't, because they also have benefits. The U.S. side also has benefits. I think it's just not a unitary position that in which the one in which the European Union negotiates in. Yeah.
Absolutely, we should push for Romania visa waiver towards America, the same like all European Union citizens. I think that should be. The other thing where I cannot understand it, because Romania is 20 years in the European Union, but you are still not member of OECD in Paris. And I don't understand exactly why that is, because when we allow you in the European Union, and we are all the members of OECD as well, we have votes there. I cannot really understand that. Can you explain me, as a former Minister of Economy, why exactly that situation is in the OECD?
So
And when will you finally join?
I'll tell you why, but you're not gonna like the answer, maybe potentially. So when Romania and Bulgaria got accepted in the EU, there were some conditions that we didn't fulfill, and it was a political decision to make us go in, even though we didn't fulfill those conditions, with the agreement that we would fulfill those conditions afterwards, and we would strive to do so. Uh, that was great for Romania. It was great for Romanians, not that great for Romanian politicians, because what Romanian politicians did then, they said, okay, we're in the European Union right now, so we don't need to bother with more reforms along the way. And all reforms afterwards happened very hardly. So it was because usually politicians don't like reforms. They stand to lose from them a lot. So they have power, they would have less power. They have some opportunities and influence, they would have less opportunities, less influence. They don't want to do that. They do so reluctantly. So I think that what happened is, after EU enlargement, Romanian politicians got careless. They just sat back. They said, okay, so we're linked to Europe. We can do whatever now. We don't need to do anything else. They can't do anything to us. We're already in. And I think that was a very bad signal. And that's why we're not in the OECD yet. But I will say this: we will get there. I think even this year or the next. So I think it's going to be a development which happens soon. Yeah, yeah.
I
That's
was
the good.
told by the Austrian authorities that this year it will happen.
Okay.
So
Well,
I
it's
hope.
even better. It's even better. I'm not
We
sure on
have
that
to speed
timeline.
up because we harmed you so much, and my apologies again for Schengen. And
It's
now we
okay.
have to, at least on that one, to help you faster. And
Thank you so
also
much, Gunther, for
in
helping
the
us and
in
supporting
the
us.
Eurozone, I think we should be much faster on that one. I have to ask you one more critical thing,
Mhm.
because I'm really big fan of Romania, but there's one thing I really don't understand, because you have not recognized the Republic of Kosovo. And that's an open wound for me because of course, I lived in Kosovo 5 years and I worked there, and I want that all countries recognize Kosovo. So, can you explain me exactly what's the reason here? What is it so important for you? Because
So
when we in Germany, Austria, America recognize a country, you're in the same alliance and we share the same knowledge about foreign policy. And why exactly you are so intransigent on that issue?
So I think the reason comes to the fact that in Romanian politics, there's this issue on whether Transylvania, Romania has three big regions. So there's Transylvania, there's Wallachia in the south, and there's Moldova, the Romanian part of Moldova. And one of the big issues that is used also by the anti-Europeans is that Hungarians want to take Transylvania away from us. That's one of their scares, and people are very sensitive to that. They're scared about that because it was a territory that used to be in the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. Then it was back in Romania, and it had some back and forth. So it's still an open wound. And I think that the president at that time, Traian Băsescu, whom I liked and I supported, I think he was wrong about that. But yeah, he said, okay, we're not going to recognize Kosovo because it's something that could happen to Romania with Transylvania as well. So he used that argument, and the result is that right now Romania doesn't yet recognize Kosovo, but I think it will come. So I do think these things have a way, when a new state or when something like this arises, from the moment in which it arises until people accept it, there's a huge lag, and there's a lag, but it will happen eventually, and it's impossible not for it not to happen. Yeah.
Because it's very pro-American, pro-European country, and it's the Serbs who are very pro-Russian and are creating a lot of problems for Ukraine. And
Yeah, I have a lot of Serbian friends who are pro EU and who are against the pro Russian governments that they have, and they're fighting the good fight as well. So I do hope that that the Serbs are going to have a new government at one point, one that wants European integration and one that wants to solve these historical wounds, because it has done a tremendous amount of damage to their country and to their people. And yeah, I support pro European Serbs, let's say,
yes,
even
there
though
is a
they're
lot of
minority.
demonstrations, pro-European Serbs on
Yeah,
the streets
yeah,
since five
yeah.
years, basically every weekend, a march of hundreds, thousands of people for democracy. But unfortunately, there's vested interest of oligarchy, and Vucic is somehow keeping them down, and
I,
it's
I
very
will
sad.
I will say this. I think the U.S. right now, I don't think is interested in Serbia, but the EU should be interested in Serbia, and I think the EU should use a lot more soft power in order to attract Serbia more in a pro-European fashion. And I think it's doable. I think people see Vucic as a corrupt president, and I think they dislike him. So I think the ingredients are there. It's just that I think we have to help out the opposition a bit more than we are doing so right now. Romania is too it can't do that right now. So it's helping Ukraine. It has to focus on Moldova. We don't have the sort of state that can focus on three things at once. But the EU should be able to do that, and I think there should be a coherent EU enlargement plan in order to bring all these Balkan countries into the EU, and have a bigger market, have a lot more people, more division of labor, more specialization of capacities and stuff. So I think we would stand, all of us would stand a lot to gain from that kind of EU enlargement, but it does require some planning, and I don't see it happening right now, unfortunately. Yeah.
You are very modest in saying that Romania doesn't have the capacity, but it's a big country with 70 million people. It's NATO, European. It's a very, very powerful state, and it's the role model for success of EU integration.
It is, and also think, we're talking about former Yugoslavia. There are a lot of people with different cultures, different religions, different languages. I do think Romania is also an example of how a lot of cultures can coexist. So we have Muslim minority, we have Russian minorities, we have a lot of small minorities, especially in the next to the Black Sea area. It's very culturally diverse, and it all works very well. It also it shows that if you don't politicize cultural differences, and if you have prosperity, it's there are no cultural incompatibilities that we have, for instance. So I think it's an example in this way, not
I'm very
necessarily of different cultures, but of different, let's say, religions, or of different cultures that have integrated, because we have these cultures for hundreds of years. So we've had them hundreds of years. It's not a new migration wave or something like that. But it does work. It does work. And people, I have friends from all over these places, very culturally different. There's basically, when we talk, there's no issue about who is from where. So, yeah.
I'm very optimistic for Romania in the next decade, and I think that your country will be one of the real magnets of economic development, of growth, of capital, and it will be a real transformation of the whole region of Southeastern Europe, the success of Romania. What's your vision for Romania in the next years? Do you share this optimism? Do you think you will be in the Eurozone? And do you think you will be very successful in the next years?
So in the next few years, I anticipate hardship in Romania, because the previous governments have left behind a big political mess, a big financial mess. So we have the biggest deficit in the EU, the biggest inflation in the EU, and also I think we pay the highest interest rate on long-term debt in the EU. Or Hungary with Orban is just a bit under us. So we have a lot of financial difficulties that we have to tackle, and also we have the highest amount of in-work poverty. So I'm a very libertarian economist. I love Javier Milei, for instance. This is
Very good.
Europeans don't usually like Javier Milei, but I
No,
think,
me, I like him.
yeah, I think it's what Europe needs. It's what Europe needs, a politician like Javier Milei right now, and Romania would need one. I mean,
France needs
France
one.
would need it.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Unfortunately, Bardella is very far from being that. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But anyways, so, the 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 economic problems that Romania has is poverty. In-work poverty is the worst. So people who, even though they work, they're still poor. When you work 40 hours a day, you can't tell somebody, "Oh, you're lazy." No, he's not lazy. He works 40 hours a day, a week, 40 hours a week, 8 hours a day. So there's another explanation for poverty, and that explanation has to do with the system, and that's why I'm fighting for a deduction for wages in Romania, because that would lift a lot of people out of poverty in an instant, or very fast. It would be the fastest way to lift these people out of poverty. Um, Unfortunately, given the financial situation of Romania right now, politicians are not focused on the real economic problems. They're just focused on short-term economic problems like the deficit. So I anticipate that in the next few years is going to be very hard, and we're going to have hardships, um, because we have to pay basically the bill for the past. But in 10 years from now, I think things are going to go a lot better. And I think so because we're going to have OECD membership. I think, and I hope we're going to have Eurozone membership in the next 10 years. And this, I think, is going to drive a lot of more potential growth. Developed economies have lower potential growth because they're more developed. Underdeveloped countries have more potential. And if you look at investments in the stock exchange or stuff like that, we have had 17% last year. Not bad. It's
Yes, very
actually
good.
it's very good. But it also compensates the risks, because there are the risk of investing in a country which has a huge deficit is that they're going to increase taxes, and growth opportunities are going to disappear.
I'm
Uh,
much more optimistic for Romania than you in that sense,
I think
because I
so.
think that the wake-up moment for Europe is coming. We will shift much more infrastructure money and convergence money towards the Eastern European countries. We will also win the war in Ukraine. Of course, we have to see that, but I'm confident. And this will be shifting the whole economic potential of Ukraine will be on our side, fully integrated into Romania, into Poland, and that will be enormous. Economic boom, the reconstruction of Ukraine, the integration of Ukraine. This will make Romania very rich again in the coming years.
So I hope you are right. I hope you are right with all of these. I do think we'll win. We will win the war in Ukraine. Unfortunately, I was talking with fellow members of parliament about this. What does winning look like? Does winning look like taking back their territories, or just
Yes.
having Russians halt the attacks? Uh, yeah, it's difficult because if you look at, we've been talking with people who know the situation on the ground. We understand that Russians are very fortified, so their territories, they fortify them, and even though they have manpower issues, and they have huge manpower issues right now, it's easier to defend than to assault. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. But I do think that Russian cannot win the war. They can't win the war anymore. That's for sure. And whatever winning looks like, I think we will win. So Ukraine will win, and I do hope what you said will happen. That Ukraine will get membership, EU membership, NATO membership, maybe, and also I do think that the European Union has to have a sort of tier system. For instance, Canada, for instance, Turkey, for instance, the Maghreb, for instance, Ukraine. Even if you don't give them European Union membership, you could give them a sort of status that lets them participate in the single market, which would be great, and also, have some sort of involvement, even though not maybe votes in the EU Council or stuff like that, if that's any a veto power or stuff like that. In this way, you could bring together countries which are being chased away by the US, for instance, which are not necessarily in the European continent, like Canada, but which would tremendously benefit the EU and Europe as a whole. So I think this is something which I've heard this idea being floated around in Brussels, and I think it would be a good idea to have this sort of membership of EU like-minded countries, especially in a world which is dominated by the US and China, which are not are pretty nasty. So Europe is the kind power, and kindness means also getting people together. So yeah, that's what I think
Yes,
Europe
and I
should be doing.
think this understanding is now increasing in Brussels. You can see that with the trade agreement with Mercosur and with India. So Ursula is working very hard. And I try to convince the European institutions to fast track the membership of Romania into the Eurozone. The criteria are one thing, but we have to win the war as well institutionally.
Mm.
And the faster Romania is in the euro, the faster you can grow, we can grow together. And also that's a very meaningful for Moldova and for Ukraine. And I think that is the best way forward. The faster Romania is in the eurozone, the better.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
I want to thank you very much for this interview. This was really very kind and open discussion about Romania 2026. It's the one success model we have from the Estonia to Bulgaria. Romania is a very big country. It really stands out and it's very successful because of the flat tax and because of good liberal reformers like Claudiu Naziu. I want to thank you very much for your time. And please, your last words for Romania. Strong. Great.
So, Gunther, thank you so much. I've had great time speaking with you. It was a pleasure. I don't even know how the time passed. So it was absolutely great. Thank you so much for what you did, for the support you've given my country and EU enlargement. And I hope there are more people like you and like us, let's say, who fight towards EU consolidation and enlargement, and also to get to make the EU more healthy in a Javier Milei style way, in which you can
Very
have more
good.
deregulation and more private economy. That would help Europe grow tremendously. We have all the ingredients here to succeed. Let's just use them. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. That was my podcast with Claudiu Naziu, former minister from Romania, member of the parliament, a great reformer. Thanks a lot. Mulțumesc mult for Romania.